Usually when we talk about building something, like a house,
Yeah.
right, there's a very logical, universally understood sequence.
Right. You have a plan.
Exactly. You gather your materials, you draw up the blueprints, and then, crucially, you pour the foundation and you actually start hammering.
Because the gathering phase is, well, it's meant to be temporary. It's just the prerequisite to the actual assembly.
Yeah. But imagine walking onto a construction site where the builder they're just endlessly hoarding materials.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I mean, trucks are backing up daily, right? Dumping thousands of bricks, stacks of premium lumber, the absolute best tools money can buy.
Just a mountain of stuff.
Right. And the blueprints are stacked 10 feet high on a desk. The builder is standing there reading manual after manual on advanced carpentry techniques. And yet there's no house.
Not at all.
Just a giant, perfectly curated, incredibly expensive pile of potential.
It's a really vivid image, because from the outside, that builder looks incredibly busy. They look dedicated.
They're sweating.
Right, but nothing of actual value is being generated.
And welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. And I have to warn you right out of the gate, for those of you who pride yourselves on being lifelong learners,
The overachievers.
the people who always have a nonfiction audiobook playing at like 1.5x speed, this deep dive might feel a little bit like a targeted personal intervention.
It really might.
Because we are looking at an incredible stack of sources today. We've got this comprehensive, almost clinical manual called the 90-Day Learning Addiction Recovery Program.
Which is intense all on its own.
So intense. And then we also have a fascinating briefing document analyzing that program called Healing the Compulsive Learner, plus a blunt, slightly terrifying essay titled The Productivity Trap No One Talks About.
That one pulls zero punches.
Zero. And so our mission today is to explore this wild, counterintuitive concept. What if your relentless pursuit of knowledge, the very thing you are entirely convinced is making you better, smarter, and more competitive,
Yeah.
what if that is actually the exact mechanism killing your progress?
It's a premise that completely flips the script on how modern culture views self-improvement, right?
Totally.
I mean, we are practically hardwired from kindergarten to view the acquisition of information as this absolute inherent good.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because the sources introduce us to this clinical grade obstacle, and they give it a very specific name. They call it learning addiction.
Right. And they are very careful to define the parameters here.
Yeah, they aren't talking about, like, the noble philosophical pursuit of wisdom.
No. They define learning addiction as the compulsive consumption of educational content. So we're talking courses, endless YouTube tutorials.
Newsletters.
Yes, newsletters, how-to articles, all of it, to the point where it fundamentally disrupts your daily functioning. It becomes this barrier that actively hinders the implementation of knowledge.
It's crazy. And the essay, The Productivity Trap No One Talks About, it does this brilliant job of diagnosing what highly motivated, intelligent people fall into this specific snare.
Yeah, it really boils down to a psychological mechanism known as productive procrastination.
Productive procrastination.
Exactly. And the reason it is so insidious is because it perfectly mimics the sensation of actual work.
Right.
Like when you sit down and binge watch a 3-hour masterclass on a new piece of software, or you read 5 long-form articles on marketing strategy, your brain gets a massive hit of dopamine. You feel incredibly accomplished.
Right, because I can check, completed module 4 off my to-do list. Which gives me that little hit of satisfaction.
Precisely. But psychologically, what you are actually doing is seeking refuge.
Oh, man.
You are subconsciously avoiding the anxiety, the friction, and the inherent risk of failure associated with real generative work.
Because consumption feels safe.
It feels incredibly safe. You are just a passive vessel receiving this polished information. Implementation, on the other hand, is dangerous.
Yeah, taking that knowledge and trying to build a messy, imperfect first draft.
Exactly. That exposes you to the possibility of being bad at something. The blank page, the empty project file, those are cognitively intimidating.
So intimidating.
So the high achiever retreats back to the warm, safe cocoon of the tutorial.
So if this endless consumption is just like an illusion of progress, how do we actually measure real growth? Because we all use metrics to track our professional and personal development.
Right, of course.
But traditional productivity metrics usually focus entirely on inputs. Like, I track how many books I read in a year or how many certifications I can cram onto my LinkedIn profile.
Which is really just measuring the volume of the materials dumped on the construction site. It's not measuring the height of the walls.
Yes, exactly. It makes me think of, like, a startup company that just relentlessly hoards venture capital.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Right. They raise a seed round, then a Series A, then a Series B. They hire consultants. They buy premium domain names. They upgrade their office space.
But no product.
But they absolutely refuse to ever release an actual product to the market because they are terrified of bad customer feedback. They are rich in resources, but completely bankrupt in terms of output.
And what's fascinating here is how the 90-day program completely re-engineers the way we measure ourselves to prevent that exact startup scenario.
Yeah.
They demand a radical shift from input measurement to output measurement. And to enforce this, they introduce a specific tool called the implementation tracker.
Which sounds simple, but it fundamentally changes the math of your day.
It really does. The key metric you must optimize for is no longer how many hours you spent learning. It's your implementation to consumption ratio.
Okay, break that down.
You literally track the minutes you spend acquiring new information versus the minutes you spend actually applying it. The goal is to heavily skew that ratio toward implementation.
Hold on, let me jump in and fight for the listener's perspective here for a second.
Sure, go for it.
What if you work in an industry that moves at light speed? Let's say you are in software development or digital marketing or, I don't know, AI research.
Right, fast-paced fields.
Yeah. If you don't constantly consume new frameworks, algorithm updates, and industry news, your skills are completely obsolete in 6 months. So in those fields, isn't hoarding knowledge a literal survival tactic? Like, why is holding on to information a bad thing?
No, it is a totally valid concern. And honestly, it's exactly how the compulsive learner rationalizes the behavior.
Right. I need this.
Exactly. But the briefing document, Healing the Compulsive Learner, draws a hard line between active skill maintenance and compulsive hoarding. They present this really harsh neurological truth: information is a rapidly depreciating asset until it is anchored into your brain via action.
A depreciating asset, meaning its value literally decays over time.
Exactly. If you read a book on a new coding language, but you don't write a single line of code with it for 6 months, that knowledge degrades.
Yeah, you forget the syntax, you forget the nuances. Yeah.
Right. The illusion is that the knowledge is sitting perfectly preserved in some mental filing cabinet, ready for the day you need it. But the reality is that it's leaking out of your memory the exact moment you close the browser tab.
Wow.
The program actually has a core affirmation to combat this. They say, implementation creates more value than consumption. Reading about a hammer doesn't drive the nail.
That is so stark. Reading about a hammer doesn't drive the nail. So now that we have this new metric, right, the implementation to consumption ratio, how do we actually stop the bleeding?
That's the hard part.
Because knowing you have a behavioral addiction and actually stopping the compulsive binging are two entirely different universes.
Oh, absolutely.
Which brings us to phase 1 of the 90-day program. And this focuses on awareness and intervention. And honestly, reading through this section felt like looking at a protocol for someone checking into rehab.
Yeah, the protocol is designed to be highly disruptive because the habit is so deeply ingrained, you cannot just willpower your way out of it. Phase 1 starts before day 1 even officially begins. It focuses heavily on what behavioral psychologists call environmental design.
And the physical interventions required here are intense. I mean, the protocol forces you to create a distraction-free implementation zone.
Right.
You must physically separate the location where you consume information from the location where you actually do the work. Like if you learn on the couch, you cannot work on the couch.
Context switching is critical here. Your brain associates specific physical environments with specific cognitive states.
So true.
Right. If your home office desk is the place where you normally lean back and watch 2 hours of YouTube video essays, your brain triggers a passive receptive state the moment you sit in that chair.
It's just a habit loop.
Exactly.
Right.
So by creating a physical boundary, you are resetting those environmental cues.
And it doesn't stop at the physical world either. You have to aggressively purge your digital environment. The manual instructs you to delete your bookmarks folders.
Oh, yeah.
Which, honestly, reading that physically hurt me.
It's painful.
Delete your bookmarks. Turn off all newsletter notifications and log out of every learning platform you default to. You basically have to make it incredibly annoying to access new information.
It's about introducing intentional friction. You are trying to sever that automatic reflex of clicking open new tab whenever the real work gets difficult.
Yeah.
But physical and digital boundaries, they only treat the environment. The protocol also introduces what they call tiered boundaries to manage the internal psychological side,
The internal panic.
specifically the immense fear of missing out, FOMO.
Yes, the specific rules they use to slow you down are brilliant. First, they mandate a 10-minute pause before you are allowed to consume any new learning content, even if it's like directly related to your job.
And that 10 minutes is a cognitive circuit breaker.
A circuit breaker, I like that.
Because when you see an interesting article, your brain immediately anticipates a reward. By forcing a 10-minute delay, you allow that initial spike of anticipated dopamine to just flatten out. And that allows your rational prefrontal cortex to step in and ask, do I actually need to read this right now?
And then they implement a one-in, one-out policy for courses and books. You literally cannot start a new audiobook until you finish or, officially abandon the current one.
That one stops a lot of people in their tracks.
Oh, for sure. But my absolute favorite rule is the 24-hour waiting period for resources found in the wild.
Yes.
Like, if a colleague slacks you this amazing, highly relevant article, you are forbidden from reading it for 24 hours. You have to put it in a holding tank.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, what the program is doing is training you to tolerate emotional discomfort.
Yeah.
Because what happens when you see a limited time offer for a masterclass or some massive thread of industry secrets on social media, the urge to consume it immediately can feel overwhelming, like a physical itch.
It really does. And the sources outline an emergency response plan for exactly that moment, which is both hilarious and terrifying.
Oh,
Yes. If you hit a panic point, like if the fear of missing out becomes an actual literal crisis, you trigger an immediate 72-hour learning fast.
3 full days.
3 full days. Absolute zero consumption. No podcasts, no articles, no tutorials, nothing.
And the underlying psychological mechanism during these waiting periods, whether it's the 10-minute pause or the 72-hour fast, is this technique drawn straight from addiction recovery. It's called urge surfing.
Okay, let's dive into that. Because urge surfing sounds a little bit like a buzzword, but the mechanics of it are actually fascinating.
They really are. So imagine the scenario. It's 11:30 p.m. You are lying in bed, you're scrolling on your phone, and you see an ad for a deeply discounted 40-hour course on, I don't know, artificial intelligence prompt engineering.
Oh, very topical.
Right. And your chest might actually tighten. Your breathing gets a little shallower. Your brain starts rationalizing.
I need this.
Exactly. If I don't buy this right now, I'll fall behind my peers. It's an investment in my future. That feeling, that is the urge.
Yeah.
Instead of fighting it or just giving in and clicking buy, urge surfing asks you to simply observe the physical sensation of the anxiety.
Just watch it.
Just watch it. You watch it rise, peak, and eventually subside, just like a wave. You realize the urge is not a command. It is just a temporary physiological state.
Right.
And by surviving the wave without consuming the content, you prove to your brain that you don't actually need the information to survive.
That is so powerful. Okay, so let's say you survive phase 1. You've surfed the urges. You've stopped filling every quiet, empty second of your day with someone else's thoughts. The noise of the tutorials finally stops.
You've reached baseline.
But then you realize something horrifying. You are sitting at your desk in your new distraction-free implementation zone, and you are staring directly at the actual work.
The scary part.
Blank page, the broken code, the messy spreadsheet, and the silence is deafening. How does the program handle the sheer panic of having to actually produce something now?
Well, that brings us squarely into phase 2, implementation and integration. And this is where the real transformation occurs, because this is where you are forced to confront the absolute root of the addiction.
The fear of being bad at something.
Exactly. The avoidance of what the program calls productive struggle.
Right.
We binge learn to avoid the cognitive strain of problem solving, the discomfort of not knowing how to achieve the result right in front of you that is psychologically painful.
Yeah, we despise the feeling of our own incompetence. We just want the tutorial to hand us the finished puzzle.
Of course we do. But the harsh reality of high performance is that actual enduring skills are built exclusively in that gap of discomfort.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because to help you survive that painful gap of productive struggle, the program introduces a concept called strategic ignorance.
Yes.
And the best way to understand this is to picture yourself navigating a dense, overgrown jungle. If your goal is just to get to the river a mile away, you do not need a detailed satellite topographical map of the entire South American continent.
It wouldn't help you anyway.
Right. Having that map would just paralyze you with irrelevant data about mountains you will never climb. All you actually need is a machete to clear the next 5 feet of vines directly in front of your face.
That's the perfect visualization. Strategic ignorance is the highly intentional, disciplined choice to actively ignore information that does not serve your immediate current milestone.
Wow.
It's about adopting a very specific psychological posture that the program calls the already know enough mindset.
The already know enough mindset. I mean, that sounds incredibly liberating, but also, honestly, terrifying for a perfectionist.
Oh, it is terrifying because it forces you to act without a safety net.
Yeah.
It is the vital recognition that comprehensive encyclopedic knowledge is usually just a massive distraction from action. What you actually need is just enough knowledge to fuel your progress for the next immediate step.
You don't need to know how the entire engine works to put the car in drive. So, to enforce this, Phase 2 mandates some pretty grueling daily practices. My personal favorite is the implementation first hour.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Very tough. Before you are allowed to check a single newsletter, read a book chapter, or watch a morning video, you must spend the very first hour of your workday doing actual generative work. You have to apply what is already in your head before you let anything new in.
It flips the default behavior entirely. Instead of learning to prepare for work, you work until you are forced to learn.
Right. And another practice is documenting the learning that happens through the act of doing. The manual requires you to write a figured it out myself journal entry.
I love that one.
Me too.
Yeah.
Because when you wrestle with a problem for 2 hours, getting frustrated, trying different angles, and then finally cracking it without a step-by-step tutorial, the neurology of that lesson is fundamentally different.
Oh, completely. It sticks with you forever because it was forged in struggle. This raises an important question, though, and it's a nuance we really have to address. The goal of this entire 90-day journey is not to turn you into some rigid anti-intellectual.
Right.
The sources aren't advocating that you burn your library card and vow to never learn a new concept for the rest of your life. Growth still requires new inputs.
Yeah, nobody is saying, shut your eyes to the world and just guess how everything works.
Right. So the challenge becomes, how do we reintroduce learning safely once we've broken the compulsive binging cycle? How do we open the tap without flooding the house again?
Exactly.
That is the exact focus of Phase 3, the architecture of balanced learning.
The cornerstone of Phase 3 is shifting your consumption away from a speculative model to a just-in-time model.
Yes. Just-in-time learning completely replaces compulsive just-in-case consumption.
Just in case, right?
Yep.
Might need this one day.
Exactly. In Phase 3, you are only granted permission to acquire knowledge if it is strictly and immediately required to bypass a roadblock on a current active project. You focus entirely on the minimum viable outcome. If you are building a website for your new business, you do not enroll in a 6-week comprehensive course on color theory and graphic design.
No.
You watch a 5-minute video on exactly how to format the specific navigation header you are struggling with today. And then, crucially, you close the browser and you build the header.
Which brings up the practice introduced on day 53 called closing the loop. Because honestly, stopping the research is the hardest part.
It is.
You fix the header, but then the YouTube algorithm suggests a video on advanced CSS animations, and suddenly you are falling down the rabbit hole again.
Yep, they know how to get you.
They really do. Closing the loop is the disciplined act of intentionally declaring sufficient mastery on a micro-subject and forcing yourself to move on.
Yeah.
You actively choose not to become an expert.
Yeah.
You say out loud, I know enough to get the result I want today. The loop is closed.
And to support this ongoing discipline, Phase 3 also requires you to manage the massive backlog of information you've already accumulated over the years.
Oh boy.
They do this through a practice called strategic forgetting.
Strategic forgetting. I mean, telling an information hoarder to forget things is like telling a dragon to give away its gold.
It is deeply, deeply uncomfortable. But as you build a mature personal knowledge management system, you must actively identify and prune the information, the saved articles, the aspirational course materials that do not contribute to your core present-day objectives.
Wow.
We often save articles because they appeal to a fantasy self.
A fantasy self. Tell me about that.
It's the version of us that is going to, learn to speak fluent Mandarin or become an expert day trader, even though we are currently fully occupied as a full-time graphic designer.
Right. Someday I'll do this.
Exactly. You have to let those fantasy identities go. And the briefing document anchors this entire philosophy with a brilliant quote from Confucius.
Oh, I remember those.
Yeah. He said, true knowledge exists in knowing that you know what you know, and in knowing that you do not know what you do not know.
I love that. Let's break that down in this specific context of this recovery program. What does that centuries-old wisdom mean for the modern compulsive learner?
Well, in the context of the productivity trap, it means that true mastery isn't about accumulating an infinite database of facts to protect yourself from feeling incompetent.
Right.
True mastery includes recognizing the exact current boundary of your competence, and more importantly, it's possessing the wisdom to know when to stop gathering materials and start assembling the house.
It's the confidence to say, I know what I need for this next step. The rest of the library is a distraction.
Precisely.
So what does this all mean? We've journeyed through the entire 90-day protocol. We started by acknowledging the hidden addiction of productive procrastination.
Yeah.
We set brutal physical and digital boundaries. We learned to surf the physical anxiety of the urge. We embraced the painful gap of productive struggle. And finally, we designed a balanced, just-in-time architecture for future learning.
Ultimately, it means a fundamental shift in your professional and personal identity.
It's a massive shift.
Yeah.
This entire deep dive has been about the transformation from a passive, anxious accumulator of facts into a strategic, active architect of results.
Well said.
The ultimate goal is to make your capacity to learn a sharp tool that you wield with intention, rather than a treadmill that you are trapped running on just to feel busy. You have to internalize the reality that perfect, comprehensive information is not a prerequisite for progress. In fact, waiting for perfect information is guaranteed paralysis.
It is. And I think the most powerful takeaway for anyone listening who feels targeted by this material is a gentle but firm reminder of where your actual value lies.
Right.
In the marketplace, in your career, and in your creative life, your worth is absolutely not determined by how many unread books are stacked on your nightstand or how many digital certificates you've clicked complete on.
No.
Your worth is determined by the depth, quality, and consistency of your application. It is only what you do with the knowledge that leaves a mark on the world.
Which brings us to a final provocation for you listening right now.
Ooh, this is a good one.
Yeah. Based on everything we've talked about, what could you achieve in your career or your life if you engaged in a 30-day knowledge fast right now?
Just cut it all off.
If you learned absolutely nothing new for the next month and focused entirely on applying the tools already sitting in your head, what would you build?
It's a pretty sobering realization to realize your desire for growth has been commodified.
It really is. So log out of the portal, put the machete in your hand, and go clear the next 5 feet of your own path.